This is Talking Drupal, a bi-weekly chat about web design and development by a group of guys with one thing in common. We love Drupal. We record this live on Wednesday afternoons in a Google Hangout. Visit us at talkingdrupal.com. This is episode 129, Wednesday, October 12th. Drupal 8 contact forms. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Is that contact form or contact forms?
It's plural. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to get into that a little more, right?
Oh, boy.
Well, we have a Drupal 8 focused show today. Is it our first? I don't think so.
Well, we've done like 3 or 4 when is Drupal 8 coming out shows in the past couple of years, so probably not.
But we won't be able to help talking about Drupal 7. And doing that today with us will be John Picozzi from Oomph.
Good afternoon. It
John,
is afternoon, right?
You are in the office today with a button-down shirt.
I am.
With the brick background behind you. So what brings you into the office on a Wednesday afternoon?
A Monday holiday, believe it or not.
So your work at home day Wednesday is it gone for the week when you have a holiday?
Yeah, so the rule of thumb is we are in the office 4 days a week, with Wednesday being a work at home day. But if Monday or Friday is a holiday, then we tend to be in the office on Wednesdays.
So what do you do on Thanksgiving on the Thursday? Same rule, right?
No. So actually, that's a great question. We get Thursday and Friday off, so I would imagine Wednesday is probably going to be in an office day.
Right. And
I'm actually taking that whole week off, so I'm not going to be here either way. So
good for you. You do anything special?
Going to Vermont for Thanksgiving.
Sounds like fun.
Do you have family in Vermont?
No. Nope.
You're getting away from the family for Thanksgiving.
No. We're taking the family with us. Or the family's taking us with them.
Oh, so it's a family retreat for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we're
cool.
We're taking the whole family away for Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's nice. Well,
yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
We'll have to take a look at our recording schedule. I haven't looked if that falls on the Thursday or not or the Wednesday for Thanksgiving.
I mean, they have internet access in Vermont last time I checked. So
yeah, it's usually dial-up.
Oh, wow.
Satellite. We'll have to double check what you're saying.
You got a sat phone.
And that voice from the background is Nick Laughlin from Enlightened Development.
Good afternoon.
Nick, what is your home work schedule?
So I work from home 5 days a week. I leave the office maybe once a month or twice a month for meetings. So my commute's pretty nice, but sometimes it's hard to get away. So
you have a terrible social schedule, right?
No, I mean once I finish work's over. I go out, but it's been busy the last couple of months. So during the week I've been working late, but hopefully see the light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully things will slow down a bit for the holiday season.
Hopefully not. I mean, let's keep that work coming, right?
Yeah, it's nice to be busy, but it's also nice to spend time with friends and family. So I need the balance. Okay.
Wow, that's good. I'm impressed. So let's talk about our topic today, which is
the tips.
Contact forms. And it's kind of really about, hey, in Drupal 7, we had this great thing called Webforms or Webform. I guess we can debate whether there's an S or not. Actually, we can't debate it, right? Is there an S or not?
There's no S.
There's no S. So in Drupal 7, we had this great thing called Webform. And now we're in Drupal 8, and we're looking for this great thing called Webform, and we're trying to figure out what to do. So this show today is about what to do and some things to look at. So before we get into that, let's talk about our tips for the week. And I'm going to go first. That we had the New England DrupalCamp since the last time we all spoke together. That was 2 weeks ago. And our focus in that New England DrupalCamp was accessibility. And we had an amazing keynote speaker. How'd you guys think that went?
I thought it went really well. I was actually fearful that it was going to be boring. And I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed the keynote. I thought it was really eye-opening and very worthwhile.
And the keynote was Brian Charlson, and he's blind, and he's an advocate for dealing with web accessibility for blind people. And his presentation was him getting up in front of this, in front of our conference, using his computer and demonstrating what he goes through on a day-to-day basis, dealing with websites from a blind person's perspective.
Yeah,
it was really eye-opening. Pun intended, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was a fantastic, it was one of the best. And I think, a couple things that make a good keynote really are, he had all of them. First, the speaker needs to be dynamic. You have to have some sort of practical application. You have to have a good demonstration. It has to be, doesn't have to be, but generally needs to have some sort of humor, and he had all of that stuff. And I mean, just as an example, he took things in stride. He was in front of 100, 120 people, and he had some difficulty connecting to the internet, and he was able to demonstrate right then and there what it's like to use a computer using accessibility software. And it certainly changed the perspective that I had on even small things like putting alt tags or skip links on the website. It's something that as a developer you always hear, like, oh, you need alt tags, you need this, but being able to see how they're read, I was, before that talk, I was proud of the fact that most of the websites I work on always have alt tags and they're required, and I thought it was great. But then to see the difference between a good alt tag and a bad alt tag, I realized that 80% of the alt tags I put there are terrible alt tags and don't give any information, the information that's necessary. So if you're building a site, the alt tag needs to describe what the picture is and does. It's not just the title. It needs to tell somebody what it is.
I actually used that with a client the other day. They were talking about alt tags, and I said, if this picture is associated with some sort of action, make sure you put that in the alt tag, like click here or click to the left for this thing. Just because, the action of an image, like everybody thinks like an alt tag is supposed to describe the image, but if an image actually has some sort of action on it or has some sort of action related to it, that's helpful contextual information that if I can't see the image and I can't tell stylistically, hey, it has an action associated with it, that could be in the alt text and really helpful to me.
So my tip is to listen to his keynote. It's not a video recording. We didn't have that available to us that day, but we do have an audio recording, which is still really valuable. Although you can't see what he's clicking on and doing, still the content is worthwhile listening to, and we'll post that along with this show so you can listen to it.
Yeah. And you'll be able to experience the talk the way he did. He gave it, so
yeah,
you'll be able to understand.
Point. Yeah.
Wow, you just got really meta there.
Yeah, and one of the key things in his presentation was that he was showing us what a good experience for him is with one website, and then showing what a bad experience is for him with a different website. And visually, both of those websites were perfectly fine. I mean, and could have been usable. And the one that was bad for him was actually visually appealing. I mean, it worked, and anyone without visual issues could have used the website perfectly fine. So it was really a great keynote.
Yeah.
So onto your tip, Joe.
For the beginning of the show. And the one I landed on was actually upgrading to Drupal 8.2 and subsequently upgrading to Drupal 8.2.1 because I went through the upgrade process for 8.2. I got through it and I was like, hey, this is easy and it works. And then 8.2.1 came out, I think that night with a fix in it. But
that's news to me. That's really? There's an 8.2.1?
Yeah, there was an 8.2.1 based on a security flaw that was found over the weekend with file attachments, public file attachments. My point there is upgrade to 8.2. You get a bunch of new features, including something a lot of our clients are very happy about. Some of the workflow management tools are actually in Core now. So in Core, you have the ability to set content to draft and work with it similarly to how you would if you enabled Workbench moderation. You're now able to do that within Core. So that's a feature that is pretty cool. You also have some more inline editing options, the ability to place blocks right from a page using the configuration menus within page content. So there are a lot of improvements there that I think are worthwhile.
All right, great tip. Nick, you have something about SSL.
Absolutely. So my tip kind of goes back to the DrupalCamp that we had as well. So this year, in an effort to tighten up security a bit, we actually enabled SSL across all pages of the website. And if you had spent some time on the website, you may or may not have noticed that there were a couple of minor issues. So I'd set up a redirect at the root that basically just pushed everything to HTTPS. But on certain platforms, Mac and iOS, you would occasionally get insecure links that would get passed, and that would break certain styles and a couple of other things. It didn't actually affect the order pages or anything, but some pages would become unstyled. So the issue, I spent a decent amount of time trying to run this down and figure out why that was happening. It was very difficult to reproduce. Clearing cache on the host sometimes would fix it. Clearing it elsewhere sometimes wouldn't, etc. And I have Peter, who's a listener and a client of mine, to thank for pointing out that we also recently put Cloudflare in front of Netcamp to help out with stability. And it turns out that Cloudflare by default ignores whether or not it's HTTP or HTTPS. So you need to add a page rule at the very top that basically says, hey, push everything to HTTPS, and then it will cache everything. So even though I was redirecting stuff at the htaccess level, Cloudflare would occasionally cache things as non-SSL, and then when it served them to somebody, even though they were visiting an SSL page, they would get served non-SSL content. So if you have websites that have SSL on any part of the website and you're using Cloudflare, make sure that you're actually setting, make sure that those pages are being stored as SSL. So I was able to set the rule.
Do you have any explanation as to why I could never reproduce this issue? I'm on that environment, iOS, Mac. I've cleared cache, killed browser. I could never reproduce that problem ever.
That's one of the reasons why it was so difficult for me to reproduce, is because once I experienced it once, and then once I cleared all the caches all the way through Cloudflare, I haven't been able to reproduce it. Okay. I think what happens is before we enabled SSL everywhere, certain files were cached more aggressively than others. And so the browser was requesting the non-SSL version, and Cloudflare was serving it. So I suspect it only occurs to people that visit the site beforehand. And for some reason, Mac, because it was the only people that made complaints were on Mac or iOS. Right. For some reason, they had already visited it, and it was typically around the fonts. So I suspect that the font files were just cached a bit more aggressively.
Well, the problem is fixed. So anyone going to the nedcamp.org website should see a fixed website, although the conference is over. So
if you do see a problem, don't tell me about it. Actually, just kidding. Let me know. Send me a tweet or send me an email.
All right. All right. So let's get into our topic for today. So let's start with what up with Webform D7. So we've all used that. It's one of the top 10 modules, right? Probably number 3 or 4 used in Drupal 7. And it seems to be MIA in Drupal 8.
Yeah, so that's actually pretty accurate. If you are to go to the Webform module, and today I actually found out that there is a Webforms module, which is not the same thing. So be weary of that.
Web Forms versus Web Form.
Correct.
I wonder how many times I've downloaded that accidentally on what.
Web Forms has a D8 dev version. Web Form does not. Web Form is the more widely used module. But anyway, if you go to the port page for Web Form, you'll notice that in the summary, they make two very good suggestions. And we're actually going to elaborate on those a little bit. But the suggestions are to use the core contact module. So again, we'll talk more about this, but the contact module is now how you create web forms, and it is in Drupal 8 core with a module, add-on module called contact storage. Contact storage is a module that gives you actually quite a few of the pieces of functionality that you would get with web forms. High level, you get message storage, the ability to edit messages, custom redirects, views integration, custom button text, and that sort of thing. So those two modules are one suggestion. And then the other suggestion, if you need something more advanced, is the YAML form module.
Now, how's the UI of the YAML Forms module? It's something that I've
So so before we get into YAML, right? Let's back up to like out of the box Drupal 8.
Yeah, so out of the box Drupal 8.
What do you get there?
I've actually used this for a form on a site pretty recently. And out of the box, you get the ability to create a contact form and have that form emailed to somebody. So it's a little bit limiting. I do believe you get some sort of confirmation message as well on that. So it's a little bit limiting. With the addition of the contact storage module, you get more of the features that you're used to in web forms. Now, granted, it's not like fully fledged web form, but you have a lot of the kind of nice to haves where you can set an admin message, you can set a redirect path, you can set custom button text, you can have views integration if you want to build a view for displaying results or something to that effect.
So John, one of my biggest frustrations back in Drupal 7 with Webform was it was not an entity or a node. It was its own content type. So in Drupal 8 core and then with the contact storage, we're now dealing with entities, right?
Yeah, that is correct. So you do have, it is basically fieldable. You can field it in any way you really need to. And that's actually how we're using it. We have an entity reference field in our form that references other nodes, so people can select nodes that they're interested in and send that off as part of the form submission.
So creating views, creating exports, all that stuff is now just baked right into this thing.
So it is and it isn't. So I do not know if you need contact storage in order to have better views integration, because one of the things contact storage does say in its feature set is that it gives you views integration. So without this add-on module of contact storage, I don't know if you could actually integrate contact forms into views just in core. That is something I have not tried.
Interesting. Okay.
So with these two modules, the core form module and contact storage, you get a pretty full-featured web form. Kind of handles most of your basic needs. I've also actually implemented another module that will, I believe it's called the Prepopulate module. And what that does is it actually allows you to take a query string out of the URL and populate it into your form fields. So that was something that you could do with web forms as well. You could take a query string and set it as kind of a default value in a form. So you have the ability to do that with Drupal 8 as well. Granted, you have to add another module in there, but it works pretty well, and you can get it to work the way you need it to, or the way that it used to. So there's still a lot of functionality out there that people have relied on web forms for, and a lot of add-on modules to web forms that I'm not 100% sure have been ported over yet. But I imagine as we go, that's probably going to be more of the case.
Yeah, I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on just the strategy that, or lack of strategy, that in Drupal 7, web forms was a top probably 5 module in Drupal 7.
Mm.
And when Drupal 8 was released, it's kind of all of that functionality basically ignored. And now we're starting to get some contrib modules that now build up and resupply that again. When I would think that would, since it was so popular in Drupal 7, why would that not be part of Drupal 8 at the core level?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons there too, because I thought right along that at some point Webform would end up as a core module, and I would have thought that Drupal 8 would have been that time. But the more I look at it, the more I think there's several reasons why it hasn't, and I think that there's some really good reasons that it shouldn't. Webform started up in Drupal 5, Drupal 4. Quite a long time ago, and solved the problem. In Drupal 7, how it was still necessary. Drupal 7 was when the entity system really started to take off, but it was kind of half-baked in Drupal 7, especially when Drupal 7 came out, which is why Webform kind of grew up and built its own field storage system and field API. Like, one of the main problems with Webform has been that it doesn't use the field API. You can't, you install the telephone module, you can't just use telephones in Webform. You have to use the Webform form module, for example, which is a side effect of that. So Webform. So sorry, let me back up.
So just so you're clear, I'm not asking about Webform in the module.
Yeah.
In 7, I'm asking about the functionality. I mean, any website has a contact form. It has multiple forms. It seems like a core. It seems to me it should be a core capability of a system.
Well, and that's exactly what I was just getting to. So I think the issue is that people want the community of Drupal will be better served as having something that uses the core entity system of Drupal. And there were some attempts to make that work in Drupal 7. The problem is, I think the problem in Drupal 7 was that Webform had way too much momentum. And so I think what this period is just a time for the community to kind of decide what the best way to handle this is. Because there's still certain issues that aren't solved by the core system. For example, one of the things that Webform does pretty nicely is give you a way to download just the most recent contacts. And it's a very easy way for non-technical people to create new forms if they're creating a survey, for example. So I think one of the reasons why, besides the fact that Drupal 8 already had enough on its plate, one of the reasons why it wasn't was the community needs some time to figure out what the most efficient way is for them to move forward. And part of the things that we're talking about is, should it just be a small add-on module for the core contact module, or should it be YAML forms or entity forms, which we haven't talked about yet?
Or is it because that maybe there was no one willing to take on the ownership of that piece from the community? I mean, because clearly this is a need, right? This is clearly.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's the second prong to it. So, so to port views to Drupal 8 took 6 or 8 months and a donation of, I think, $125,000 in order to get it ported. And that's the most used module. And part of the reason why it took so much is because it's one of the more complex modules that exists. Webform is probably one of the only modules besides core Drupal modules that can rival views on the complexity. So, Webform itself, I think, currently has, let me take a quick look. I think it has 238 open issues and 8,000 total issues, just to give you an idea of the magnitude.
In Drupal 7?
In Drupal 7.
Yeah.
So you're not talking about a group of, or even a team of people just taking a week or 2 weeks to port this module over, on top of the issue that Drupal 8 doesn't want a web form port. Drupal 8 wants an entity-backed system for providing the same solution.
So while Views got the financial support for the migration, Drupal, the web forms did not.
Correct. And part of that was the creator of Webform stepped back from Webform and said they wouldn't maintain it or report it, and now maintains a fork of the Drupal ecosystem, and that's where Webform is maintained.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to, so we've got the core functionality in Drupal 8 to create a contact form. We've got contact storage, which is the next thing you should look at. And then what should be the next thing you should consider after that?
So, I mean, I think as far as forms go, you need to look at, before you even start going down the path of what solution you should use, you figure out what your form needs to do, right? So like take it even back out of Drupal, right? So if I'm creating a basic contact form, the core contact form module and contact storage, probably going to be just fine. But if I need something more advanced in that contact form, I need people to be able to do something that, web forms used to be able to do. You might want to look a little bit harder to see if, first of all, if there's a way to do it through the entity system. So one of the big pluses here is we now have all of these entities available. So we can basically create fields to support our web form content, right? So one thing that comes to mind is MailChimp, right? You want a MailChimp sign up. Well, you can add an email field, and if you add an MailChimp field to your form, now that's going to work the same way that it would work pretty much anywhere else. So you do have a lot of field content or entity content that you have available to you. So making sure, first off, that you can do what you need to do through the core, through the entity system and the core form system is going to be important. After those two modules, I think you're really just looking at, like I said, I used this Prepopulate module I had a need to be able to pull in values from a query string. So Prepopulate allows me to do that. So now I think what you're looking for is ways to enhance your form and ways to make your form a little bit more usable. But honestly, like those two modules or those three modules are all that I needed to use to make a web form that would do what I needed it to do. Keep in mind, I also had other modules installed for other nodes that had entity references on them and paragraphs on them and so on and so forth. So there are some other modules there for other things that I could use on a web form, but honestly, those are the only three that I really needed to use to get a functioning form.
Hey, John, as you talk about the Prepopulate module, I've done this in the past in Drupal 7 with allowing some PHP to happen on a field. Do you know if that exists in Drupal 8?
So
probably not, right?
The Drupal community has done a really good job at Drupal 8
the PHP
of preventing you from really adding PHP anywhere, which is good. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's a big security risk if you allow PHP in certain fields.
But do you have the hooks to do it instead?
So that's what Prepopulate does. Prepopulate actually allows you to pass that value by using the field's ID as the key for the query string. So you add the query string to the end of your URL, you use the field's ID, and then Prepopulate looks at that and says, oh, you want me to add this piece of content into that field. And then it does it for you.
So I have a question for you. So probably the most important feature of Webform, which we haven't talked about yet, is the email portion. The reason why Webform is used is because you can say, hey, when somebody fills this out, email this group of people and email the person that sent it, and here's a bunch of tokens to send in the email body. and a bunch of other rules. Is that something that you can manage with the contact form and the contact storage form?
Yeah, so the option, I'm actually looking right now, but you do have a recipients box where you can fill out multiple people's emails to be able to send different people emails on a form submission. I'm not sure if it will allow you to send the person that's filling it out an email. I don't see any token replacement here on this page that I'm looking at for that ability. So that might be, again, another module that you need to add in there. But you do have the ability to set email addresses and kind of redirect people as well. Oh, actually, there is an auto reply field. So you have an option to if you want to send a user an auto reply message. So you have that option as well. So the auto reply, I would imagine, is that kind of email back where you can say, hey, we got your submission, like we're looking into it.
So another module that we should mention before we close out here is the YAML Forms, which is a module that kind of is in this space with the web forms. Do you guys have experience with it?
I do not. I'm actually looking at the module page for it right now, and there's a nice little video there to introduce as an introduction. But no, I don't have any actual experience with this module.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, I did install it, but it was quite a while back, and I remember it being fairly difficult to manage. But I've since heard that it's actually vastly improved. It's actively maintained.
Yeah, so I've seen some information recently, and I attended a recent Boston Drupal meetup, and they were talking about YAML Forms there, and it looks like it's a great form solution. Provides a lot of the functionality of web forms, has a Drupal 8 port. A couple of things, it's not entity supported though. It's very similar to web forms. So if you want to get the content in, store it, be able to export it and send it to multiple locations like web forms, it looks like an alternative solution. So it should be something you should consider if you're in Drupal 8 and you're looking for something web form-ish, to take a look at YAML Forms. Why it's called YAML Forms is because there's a user interface that controls the definition of the form, which actually it generates a YAML file. So you can modify the configuration of the form through a YAML file as well. From what I understand, it's worth taking a look at if you're looking for a web form replacement.
So this seems kind of odd to me. And let me explain why it seems odd, and then you guys can tell me why or if I'm missing something. Maybe I'm missing something. So we have contact form that's in core. We have the ability to have contact storage, which gives us a lot of that functionality that we're looking for that comes out of web forms. We also have the ability to add entities to a contact form, right? So, if I wanted a phone number field, I could go and get the phone module. Or if I wanted a address field, I could go get the address module. So I have the ability to basically build this form in any way, shape, or form. I made it funny. Why would I want to use this YAML form module to create this form and kind of take it away from the entity flexibility that the core contact form module gives us?
Yeah, great question, and it would be I would agree with you that it is a step backwards to not use an entity-based system. But I believe the functionality of YAML form in terms of just a form, like if you have a form like a web form in Drupal 7 and you want email capabilities and messaging capabilities, it's my understanding that YAML form provides a lot of that functionality and some things that could be missing in the other solutions, the entity-based solutions in Drupal 8. So I bring it up today because I've heard that it's a good thing to look at if you don't need, some people don't need to have, form entry as entities. That's completely reasonable to understand that you don't need that, right? All they really want to do is collect stuff, send it out, and export it. So YAML form could be an option for anyone that's looking for that.
I guess I'm just as far as like my future proofing brain goes, I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out why you would not want that as an entity. Like
totally with you, unless there's something in YAML form that is not provided in the entity-based solutions. I mean, we never had that in Drupal 7. Really, didn't have a really good solution for that. We had some things that kind of worked, but weren't great solutions. So, I mean, we're just trying to bring this up for people to just take a look at that option, because my understanding is it's solid, it works, and it's well supported, and it may fit what you actually need.
Good deal.
Sounds good.
All right, what else do we have to bring up for forms? Anything else?
Not for me.
I think that was all I had.
Okay, so we're all going to ignore this last bullet here on the agenda because we don't know what it means. Okay, let's all shake our heads. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And we're not going to say it either. Don't say it, please.
No.
All right. And I'm not sure how that got in there, so we'll just ignore that one. I threw out the bait to see if anyone would bite.
Yeah, I was actually just reading the page as you were saying that, and no. I think we should just stay where we're at.
And let's call it a day. What do you say?
Absolutely. Sounds good.
So thank you for your wisdom, John, this week. Again, with your experience with quote unquote web forms or web form. So John, where could people find you and contact you and consume your time?
Oh man, you can find me on all the major social networks at John Picozzi. You can also find me pretty much daily at the Oomph offices in Providence. And if you're interested in learning more about Oomph, you can find us at oomphinc.com.
Fantastic. John, how about that Newport marketing thing? Is that still going on?
That is still going on. It is a monthly marketing meetup in Newport, Rhode Island, called Newport Interactive Marketers. And I'll actually be there. November 3rd is the next one. So I'll be there November 3rd. And I think the topic is actually about using Google Analytics to increase your business potential or something to that effect. Sounds pretty interesting.
Sounds like a good topic, actually.
Yeah, it does. I'm really excited. I'm going to definitely try to get down there to make it. So you can catch me there too.
How about you, Nick?
You can find me online pretty much everywhere at Nixvan, Nicxvan. Reach out if you have any questions.
Great. And you can reach out to me at Stephen Cross on Twitter. I am hoping to be, for the first time in many months, at the Drupal PVD meeting, which is what date, John? That's next Tuesday, right?
It is.
That would be...
wow.
18th.
The 18th, yeah. So I'll be there, and you can always find me at parallaxinfotech.com. Thanks, guys.
In a couple weeks.
Have a good one.
See ya. Bye.